Okay, so this is a quick little video on the differences between a return statement and a console.log statement. And so for this, I decided to just whiteboard out some code that, you know what, we're going to test out on my laptop in a little bit. But to do it, let's look at two functions. So we have this first function here called test. And with test, we're simply going to return the number 9. And then we're going to console.log it. If we run it in our JavaScript application, I would recommend using jsbin.com. What will happen when we try to console.log test with the open and close parentheses is we're going to see the number 9 appear in the console. And this is because when a function's actually called, the return statement dictates what becomes of the function when it finishes. So what happens is, first, test is just a function call when it's running, and then at the end of the call, this return statement 9 means that this test variable goes from being a function to being a variable, in this case with a data type that's a number, and the value associated with this variable is 9, similar to how we might have, just gonna draw write out one more thing, similar to how if we had a variable called like lake, for example, and we were to set it equal 9, and then we were to console.log it, what we would see when we ran this console.log statement on this variable would be likewise the number 9. So yeah, with a return statement, it converts our function into a variable with a value associated with it. In this case 9, but if I were to place 9 with, for example, a string, so let's do that really quickly. And we're going to give it the string paper. Then if we were to console.log test again with this new return statement, and if we were to console.log it, what we would see in our console is a string paper. And so now let's also talk about that console.log statement, since we're using it a lot and we're trying to contrast it with how it's different from a return statement. So with console.log, the only thing that's going on is it's printing off whatever is inputted into it. So if we input this variable lake and we were to give it the value 9 and we were to console.log it, it's all the console.log statement is doing is it's showing to us, the person writing the program, what exactly is contained with this variable lake. But a console.log statement by itself isn't actually doing anything outside of that. So it's not converting a function into a variable. It's not giving it a value. It's just a simple print statement. So for example, if we were to have this function called exam, actually I need to make one slight adjustment. And we didn't give it a return statement, so that's what we gave it a simple console.log statement here, but we didn't give it a return. If we were to try and console.log this, what's going to go on is, with this part, the function is actually going to get called, so it's going to run through the things going on inside here. In this case, it's going to print off this 9, and then when the function's done being called, in this case, because it's not returning anything, then exam is a variable that has nothing assigned to it. So because there's nothing assigned to it, when we try to print off the value of it, because there's nothing assigned to this variable exam, it's going to print off undefined. So if we try this, it's going to print off 9 first because that's what happens inside of this function that we're creating, and then it's going to print off undefined because it doesn't return anything. So this newly converted variable exam doesn't have a value assigned to it, so it's literally just undefined. And so yeah, that's the difference between a return statement and a console.log. Return statements in the context of a function, it converts our function call into a variable that has a specific value with it, namely the value that we literally return to it. That's the value. Whereas a console.log is just a simple print statement. That's all it does. And so to see this, I'm just gonna go over to my laptop really quickly, and I'm gonna pull up JSBin, and I'm gonna run this code that we just whiteboarded out. So hold on a second. Okay. Let's go to JSBin. Okay. So here's this JSBin little tidbit of code that I wrote up. So first, let's just clear. I've already ran some of these statements, but let's clear it off just so we can do it from the top. We have this function test, we're returning a 9, and with this function exam, we're just console.logging 9, but we're not returning anything. So let's just run this test first and see what comes of it. And just like we predicted on our whiteboard, oh, we changed it to paper. So actually, let's change the return statement from 9 to paper. And let's clear this. So now we're going to return paper, the string paper, in our test. Yep, and that's exactly what comes out, just like we whiteboarded. So now let's uncomment this console.log for the exam, and let's comment out this console.log for the test. And let's clear our console again. And let's see just one more time. So we're going to console.log 9, but we're not going to actually return anything. And see what happens. And yep, this is, we kind of whiteboarded it out. We're going to first print off this 9 because it happens inside our function call. Is we were console.logging 9, then when the function terminates, because we're not returning anything, this value associated with this function call, because when we do the function call, at the end of the function call, our function becomes a variable with a value associated with it, and because we're not returning anything, then that variable that we're trying to return is literally just undefined. So that's what it ends up printing out. So it's similar to how if we had a variable called lake, and so I'm gonna, for this uncomment out, we're gonna comment out the exam, and we're gonna define this variable lake, but we're not actually gonna give it a value, and then we're gonna console.log it. This, and it's cleared off. So we've defined this variable lake, but we haven't actually given a specific value yet. So let's console.log it. And yep, undefined. And so that's the equivalent of what's going on when we console.log this exam, but we don't return anything to it. We're at that point, at the end of the function call, this exam is a variable, but it doesn't have anything assigned to it, so it's literally just undefined. So that's why I printed off undefined. So yeah, hopefully that helps illustrate some of the differences between the console.log and the return statement.